Welcome back to News Talk. We don't know who President Obama will nominate for the Supreme Court vacancy created by the death of Justice Antonin Scalia, nor do we know when the announcement will come. But we do know that Mr. Obama will nominate someone. This despite Republican clamor for the Senate not to even consider any potential successor that Mr. Obama chooses. Joining us now here in the studio, reporter Elena Platt. She's the Buckley Fellow at National Review. Good to have you here. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
This all got going in terms of the partisan back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, leaders on the Hill in the White House. Very, very soon. It was within hours, maybe even minutes of news Saturday night that Justice Scalia was dead, that the political ramifications and the back and forth kicked into high gear. This was really startling, and we're at a very interesting place already.
Yeah, precisely. And I would venture to say it was minutes after national outlets did pick up on the news of the death of Justice Scalia. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell sent out a note immediately while honoring his legacy. Quickly after said, Senate Republicans will block any successor that Obama chooses. And many saw that as just partisan rabble-rousing so close to home. But what you have to remember is that what McConnell did was strategic for his fellow senators. It gave them cover. It said, you don't have to put out a statement immediately. I'll give you cover to hang under this. Don't worry about it.
More than saying that Republicans would be unified in voting down any nominee that the White House put forward, they said Mr. Obama should not even put someone forward because he's in the last year of his term. There's a presidential race underway, and in a year we'll have a new president, and she or he should be the one to choose. So it was a remarkable statement because it went beyond just, hey, given this guy's politics, we know that anyone he thinks would be the right pick for the choice would be wrong for the country were that nominee to be confirmed.
Right, and Republicans are making the argument that because this upcoming election is such a referendum on so many things, their majority hangs in the loop in the Senate. They're saying let the American people, while they're also, deciding the new majority potentially in the Senate, deciding a new president, let them also get a say in who the next Supreme Court justice is by virtue of who they choose for president.
Is there a risk in sticking to this line of thought, given that many Supreme Court justices, including several who are on there now, were nominated and confirmed in the fourth year of a president's term? I mean, the Constitution says the president shall nominate and the Senate shall consider nominees when there's a Supreme Court vacancy. It doesn't, as Elizabeth Warren has pointed out, it doesn't say anything about except when we're in the 8th year of a Democratic president's administration, then we should punt to the next. I mean, we have a president.
Right, exactly. It's a risky gambit for a lot of reasons that you've just pointed out, Bruce. I would say actually the riskiest gambit on the part of Republicans is they're in many ways hedging their bets that a Republican will win the presidential election in November. What could happen is that Obama has already, told his aides right now, I'm interested in putting forth someone who's mainstream, so it would look just even more calculated for Republicans to flat out reject his or her nomination. But what could happen is we do get someone like Hillary Clinton in the White House in November and, goes full throttle for a liberal-leaning justice, and it could be worse for Republicans than what Obama would put forth now.
And there are so many people whom the president could choose who, for example, were confirmed unanimously by the Senate for an appellate court position, who were confirmed for an administration post, whether it's a cabinet secretary or someone like Jay Johnson, head of Homeland Security, someone with strong credentials, someone who's been vetted, someone who's been through the process, who made it through 97-3 or 100-0 or on a voice vote, right? So suddenly you're going to pivot and say, oh no, this person is horrific. We won't even consider. We won't even have an up or down vote. It's a lot to ask if being sort of intellectually consistent is at all still relevant in our modern politics.
Right. So a name that has been put forth often for this post in the last couple of days is Attorney General Loretta Lynch. And what Obama, I think you're going to see him do is put forth someone who, like you say, has just been recently confirmed by a wide margin, force the Republican senators to, suddenly say, no, absolutely not fit for the job, when they did just confirm someone like Loretta Lynch for one of the highest posts in the cabinet.
For Republican senators from purple states or blue states who are up for re-election in the fall of 2016, this November, could this be a difficult moment? Could there be a squeeze between a sense back home that at least give the person an up or down vote versus what the leadership and maybe the base are saying, which is if Obama's for them, we're against them?
Absolutely. And right now you're seeing that take shape in the elections of people like Rob Portman, Kelly Ayotte, Mark Kirk. They're in a tough position because they've kind of crafted their campaigns around a message that we are beyond partisan politics. We reach across the aisle. Kelly Ayotte constantly touts the fact that she's, I think, the 7th most bipartisan senator in the Senate based on how many times she's crossed the aisle in votes. But what this position does is say, listen, I am going to be partisan and say that Obama should not put forth a nomination and we won't even consider it, which is why you're seeing people like Mark Kirk. He hasn't even come out with a statement yet whether or not he agrees with McConnell, because so much calculation has to go into how that affects his election.
Are you reading these statements from Mitch McConnell and others to mean that once we have a name and there will be a sort of informal outside vetting process that will begin in the media and I suppose legal circles as well, because traditionally the American Bar Association, among others, will offer thoughts and opinions on any nominee that any president puts forward. But are you reading this to mean that there will be no formal consideration by the Senate Judiciary Committee or beyond? It'll be like it never happened, in other words?
It could happen that way. If Obama, what could happen is that Obama puts forth a nominee and they just delay hearings. They don't get the motions they need for cloture on debate, and they just delay, keep debating. If they make it to March, I think it's March 12th, they would have broken the record for the longest vacancy.
March 12th, 2017.
Yeah, exactly, March 12th, 2017. They would have broken the record. But yeah, if they can convince their fellow senators not to vote for cloture, debate keeps going.
What can Democrats do once we have a name?
Democrats can, essentially, I think Democrats have a lot of political ammunition when it comes to this, not even necessarily for getting Obama's nominee, whoever it may be, into the position, but kind of, and Hillary Clinton has done this already, using this to paint Republicans as willing to go pull out all the stops to stop a president they disagree with by abandoning their duties as outlined in the Constitution.
Can you talk a bit about why this issue so energizes Republican leaders and the base? I mean, the stakes are obviously high because of the role the Supreme Court plays, but can you take it beyond that sort of one-sentence descriptor, why this issue became so fast one of the very top issues that I think will color the 2016 race for the White House and our politics just in general?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for base Republicans, they're feeling now that more so than ever, November will be a referendum on what the next generation will look like in this political system. It will be a referendum on the future of issues like abortion, climate change, affirmative action. Essentially, if a Democrat becomes president and can lock in the nominee that he or she wants, for many pro-life Republicans, they feel that the future of something like abortion is just out of their hands completely. So you're really going to see grassroots candidates like Ted Cruz rallying their supporters around these issues and using it as a line of attack against someone like Donald Trump, saying, can you really trust a former reality star to, ensure that issues like abortion, affirmative action are in the hands of a solid conservative?
And there are only 9 justices. Each seat is hugely important, and every time somebody in their 40s or 50s, which is to say someone relatively young, is confirmed to a spot on the U.S. Supreme Court, it means quite potentially that he or she will be there making impact on policy for the entire country for potentially a 30 or 40-year span, which is to say an epically long period of time.
Right. Like I said, November is a referendum not only on the next 4 years, but also, again, the next generation, I would say, of the American political climate.
Elena Plott of National Review. Always great having you here. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate your time. Really interesting issue. We'll talk with you again. Thanks very much for your time. Headlines in the forecast are next for you. And then, why are the Wizards underperforming? We'll ask Tom Frelkamp of the DC Pro Sports.